Parliament did something that we have been anticipating for a long time. It's been a long battle indeed, but now the battle has ended with the passage of the legal education bill into law. And the fundamental question to ask now is, are the reforms fit for purpose? Are they adequate? We're going to be looking at that, but also now expanding on that particular bill that has been passed and what it means to you and for legal education generally. I know many of you have been asking that question. Many of you have been waiting to possibly go to the law school, but have shelved that dream because of how chaotic it's been for a long, long time. But this particular bill establishes the Council for Legal Education and Training. So that's one institution that is so essential to it. It will also regulate professional legal training in this country. And so it provides a very clear regulatory structure for it. And so that's one of the key things to note. But also the subject of standardization is very important and built into this piece of legislation when it comes to the curriculum. And those who framed it and pushed for it were very clear in their minds that you needed an architecture that will provide a standardized curriculum as far as legal education is concerned across the country, right? And so that has provided this in the piece of legislation that was passed by Parliament just last week before they went on recess. But if you look at the Council's role, it's very important that we look at that because they will regulate the National Legal Education. So that is a very powerful body, and that body will replace the General Legal Council, right? That it's a conversation that we'll have pretty shortly. They also set curriculum and set standards. And how exactly are they going to do this? So are these going to be only lawyers, or going to have other professions in there to look over legal education? And I believe that's just a conversation that needs to be had. The judges, lawyers themselves, how many years of experience you require to be on this. And I see the Attorney General has a role to play on the council also. But that is just the architecture that this law creates. Now, the argument for those who are pushing this particular bill, which has been passed now, I want clarity on whether or not he's been signed into law by the President. We'll get clarity for you very shortly. The current act that we have, it's, that this particular law will replace, was very comprehensive on the subject of legal profession. So when it comes to the training of lawyers, a professional law course, it was very, very comprehensive. It looked at it comprehensively, but it left gaps. Okay, they believe it was unregulated, and so that's one of the key things that they raised. And as you know, there was a monopoly that the Ghana School of Law had. It was the sole professional legal institution in this country. This piece of legislation will do away with this monopoly instantly. And once you have this monopoly, you better have capacity to accommodate everybody coming through, because that is the only place you go for professional training, after which you can sit and write the bar. And so you saw that they began to have capacity issues. They just didn't have the space to take in the number of students who were qualified to come in. And so they had to devise all manner of means to cut out people and to reduce the numbers. What did they do? They introduced the entrance exams, which became a scandal in itself over time. And you begin to see the number of people who were now going in and was climbing. They had to find all manner of ways to deal with the spacing and capacity problem, right? But this law says, decentralize professional legal education in this country. Let every university that is qualified, put them in a position where they can train lawyers to go into actual practice. That, in essence, is the philosophy behind this act, right? So from the Ghana School of Law, we're going to have universities empowered to train lawyers, to train all of us once we go through the basic LLB to get into this professional training in any university that is accredited, of course. Then you can sit for the bar, and if you pass that bar, you're called and become a lawyer. Because we have a challenge with the sheer number of lawyers in this country, and if you look at it, a lot of lawyers are based here in Accra, but for a country of 30 million people plus, with the only sole institution having only graduated 12,000 plus people, 12,226 people, since its creation in 1963, is just woefully inadequate. And we need to find a way of simply getting more people to read the law and graduate. And demand and supply will sift it out. I mean, law is just like any other thing, right? If you're not good enough, you won't pass a bar exam. As simple as that. And so we'll also have the conversation around quality, because some who criticize this piece of legislation raise that as a point. So what will happen now for a university to indeed be accredited to train lawyers? You will first need to submit an application, and then the council will set up a committee to evaluate your application, right? That committee will then present its report to the council, and the council will approve or decline a university's application if indeed they deem either you have met the criteria or you haven't. So that is a process. And so a university must qualify. You must go through these processes to qualify to train lawyers, right, who can then sit for the bar exam. So what then happens is, if you are a Bachelor of Laws degree holder from an accredited institution, accredited university in this country, if you completed your law practice training course, right, you then get to go and sit the bar. So this is really how it happens. 3 years, you go and get your degree in the program, in the university of choice that is accredited, right? After that, you go to do 1 year of the training, that's the law practice training. So together we are talking about 4 years, very simple. And then you go and sit for the bar, simple as that. And then if you pass, you're called to the bar. If you're not, if you don't pass, you don't become a lawyer. It's very simple. They wonder why we've not done this earlier. But there are strong arguments on the other side for this. Is it too late to review if there are any concerns at all? But this has gone to the mail, broad consultations, and both sides agree that something fundamentally must happen, and so is happening. My guests will join me. Let's look at this fundamental shakeup in legal education in this country that this particular piece of legislation will enact. My guests will join me shortly after this. Stay with me. And thank you very much for staying with us here on PM Express. And it's always brought to you by Syntax Tanks. It is strong, it is tough, and Pepsodent Cavity Fighter toothpaste, as well as Stanbic CIB Impact Series. And if you're looking for a water tank that guarantees long-lasting storage, you're looking for the tortoise symbol, and that would indicate that that is the tank indeed to purchase. It's Syntax Tanks. It is strong, it is tough. Pepsodent Cavity Fighter is what you need to use tonight before you sleep, because it guarantees stronger teeth, but also guarantees that your breath is fresh as always. Get it tonight before you sleep. And if you're looking for a proper place to invest, it's Stanbic. And Stanbic is a place where they see opportunities, even when others do not. They want to unlock that value. At Stanbic Corporate Investment Banking, they partner with businesses driving Ghana and Africa's growth. Call them on 030-2815-789 or reach them online at stanbicbank.com.gh. My guest joining me for a conversation tonight is John Darko. He's a member of Parliament for Swame. He's a legal counsel. He's a minority caucus in Parliament, and I'm delighted to have him. Sam Okudzeto is a former president of the Ghana Bar Association. Also joins us for a conversation in the studio. Kwikwan Sasari, he owns a university and he trains lawyers. Former director of the Ghana School of Law, director and dean of the Mount Crest University, and I'm grateful that he joins us here in the studio also. Hassan Asari is the president of the National Association of Law Students, also joins us. We'll be joined shortly by Roxy Nelson Dafiamekbo. He's a majority chief whip. He is one of those who really push for this bill, and he had been on my show recently to articulate the various provisions in that. So hopefully he'll join us very shortly, and then we can get him to expand on a bill that he shepherded himself. But let me start with you, Mr. Sansari. I'm pretty sure you were consulted as part of the broad consultation, so that's an assumption that is correct.
To a large extent.
Okay, good. Have you seen the version that was recently passed?
Not the final version.
Not the final version, okay. But I'm interested in basically giving your thoughts on the last version you read. What are the key pillars of this particular piece of legislation that for you fundamentally addresses the challenges that you have talked about for years as far as legal education is concerned?
Thank you very much, and good evening. The key pillars, one, the general legal counsel is now one of the regulators, not the sole regulator, one. To the monopoly of the law school, as far as admissions into the law school are concerned, is being removed. Many more law faculties are now going, to be entrusted with the task of teaching the practical training program. The prerogative of the General Legal Counsel to appoint the Director of Legal Education has also been taken away. It's now being invested in the newly established Council for Legal Education and Training. The registrar of the law school will no longer be appointed by the General Legal Counsel, but by the new entity. However, the General Legal Counsel remains the sole entity for the disciplining of lawyers. So that has not been taken away, and therefore it will continue to enroll lawyers. So call to the bar, will be one of the key functions.
So it's interesting.
General Legal Counsel.
So the General Legal Counsel's mandate then kicks in once you've graduated and passed the bar,
Sure.
and then you call to the bar. Previously, before this bill, they would have had responsibility for the training, true, and then when you
Call
become,
to the bar,
when you could call
yes.
to the bar. But now this is
now it's being sort of transferred,
Okay.
to the law faculty. So the law faculties will also now have a professional training component.
Okay.
So they will do the legal education in the academic phase as well as the
Professional course.
professionals, but it is intertwined, but with defined limits. The academic phase will be handled by academic lawyers.
Okay.
So a lecturer may not necessarily have to be a practicing lawyer in order to teach the academic route. But as far as the professional route is concerned, it's basically legal practitioners, like senior Samokujeto with expertise, wealth of experience in legal practice. These are the people, the criminal de la crime, who will be teaching the professional law program. So to a large extent, it is something fit for purpose.
Okay, it is fit for purpose.
Be,
okay.
proud of.
Is it fair
I know Sami has,
concerns? Yeah, I'll definitely get him to articulate it. And, we are preempting it. I'm sure you've been having conversations.
I've been fighting with him all
I
the
know,
time.
I can imagine. I can imagine. But for most of us who are non-lawyers who maybe aspire to be, is it fair to say that the biggest change, I don't know whether that's a right description, is the democratization of legal education, if you like. I mean, the decentralization of it across the country. So I guess a university in Tamale can train for both academic and also the professional. So you don't have to travel to, Accra to come to do the professional course. Is that fair to say that probably be the biggest change?
In terms of fairness, I'll say yes, but at a price.
Okay.
At a price. The human resource is simply not there.
Okay.
Qualified, law lecturers, qualified legal practitioners who, have the ability and capacity, to impact, on students. Not too many. And then just before we came, I was, telling Senior Sami Okujeto that I blame him.
Okay.
Because as far back as 1976, the bar had the opportunity, to capture the commanding heights of the legal profession, and they let that opportunity slip them by. If that had been done, we will not be here discussing, this same issue this evening. So to some extent, yes. But my fear is has to do with quality assurance. Are we going to get people like the Sami Okujetos to continue, teaching? Like the ancestors to devote all their time to teaching and this. So it's one thing, seeking to teach and another having the capacity to deliver.
Okay.
Yes.
You raise an important point, because I see in this law now that every university can do this if you get accredited.
Sure.
And there's a clear process for doing that. You submit an application, a committee looks at it, evaluates it, they write a report, the council then decides whether you should get it or not. So if, say, UDS applies, you raise an important point that can UDS guarantee that they'll have the quality of lecturers for the academic course for 3 years, and then now have the, judges, lawyers, etc., who can now, do the practice for another 1 year, who will be there and qualified? Because in Tamale, as we know, even the practicing lawyers are pretty small. All of them are sitting in Accra and Kumasi. That, I believe, is a problem that you are.
Huge challenge.
Okay.
Not too long ago, Upper West Region had not more than 3 lawyers.
Wow.
And I'm referring to the 1990s. In 1998, Upper West Region had 2 qualified lawyers. Now, I don't have the statistics, presently. But if care is not taken, the mass production of lawyers, can affect the quality, ultimately, of people who will be professing the law as advocates, in the courtroom, law reform, legal aid, IOCO, Council for law reporters, and all that. But basically, that's my fear, and it's a legitimate one.
Okay.
But having said that, I think that this is a very bold step to ease the congestion, try to overhaul the system, to widen access, to legal education. But this must be done, holistically, so that we don't overproduce, we don't lower standards, that we maintain the standards, that you go out, you go beyond the borders of Ghana, you can hold your head high amongst international lawyers of repute. That is what we should all strive for.
Uncle Sam, you just touched on one of the biggest advantages of this, which is the access. This is going to widen access and give everybody a fair crack at getting to practice law. What do you say about this bill as passed by Parliament?
Well, I had one complaint in the first place that when this bill was proposed, the bar was not involved at all, which I thought was rather strange. One would have thought that this matter should have been referred to the Ghana Bar Association for their input, because they are the members of the profession. And it has a council which is composed of regional presidents and secretaries from each of the regions, who are all members of the council. And therefore, you can see that it's a body that is not Accra matter or Kumasi. It's a whole country, and yet nothing was referred to us. I think application was made to Parliament for us to have interview with the council, and it was never fulfilled until we now heard that the law had been passed. So that's a serious matter. More so, my view is that when we are talking about profession, it means that any time Parliament is confronted with an issue relating to a profession, Parliament should get the professional body to be involved. It's a question of dialogue, if you like to put it that way, or sometimes I put it in a more crude way to say that nobody has monopoly of talent or knowledge. And that means that the Evans have an idea, which I always like to quote, which says that knowledge is like the baobab. It is so huge that you can never fully embrace it, which means that what I know is only a fraction of the whole. What you know is only a fraction of the whole. And I said, what it means is that I cannot even pretend that, let's say I am Kwakwa Sasari, can sit here and discuss the matter, we think that that is complete. Because others may have other kinds of knowledge that we, the two of us, do not have. So for me, it is A to Z. That's what it is meant to be. So unfortunately, this was not done. But this question about monopoly is partly true, partly not true. Because many are forgetting that we have a faculty at Kumasi, at UST. There are people who, that's also part of the law school, which is actually functioning at Kumasi. Part of it is also at Gimpa. It's also the law school. It's part of the same law school, but it's at Gimpa. It's not controlled by Gimpa itself, but they actually have classes there, which are also being taught. So it's
I believe UPSA also has some training.
No. They have law faculty.
Yes.
But I'm talking about the law school.
The law school.
The law school actually is in Accra, but there is actually one in Kumasi. There's another one at Gimpa. Also. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
But as for law faculty, many of them have sprung up all over the place. And my young brother runs one of them.
Yes, that's indeed.
Yes, right. But the question will be just for us to be cautious in the sense that I think he's trying to refer to that. It's just to say that if you're not careful, each university will also like to have open a law faculty.
Yeah.
And then, of course, how many lawyers do you actually need? Who has made a survey to find what the needs are? It has not been done. And if you are not careful, what's going to happen is that each university will also like to have a law school, allegedly to produce lawyers. Now you're going to have, as he said correctly, you don't have the manpower for the training of those lawyers. And so you can have the danger of having a lot of people who are coming out who are not properly trained.
But isn't the sifting done when you sit for the bar, which is really what this is now going to do?
Oh, no. It's a narrow way of looking at the matter. It's not a question of sitting on the bar. Why should the person go and spend 3 years in the university to go and get a law degree, another 1 year also to prepare himself for the professional, go and take the examination, bump, and then what happens to him or her? So you have to be cautious in the sense that you have to be sure that those who are going to go to the majority at least will be able to pass the exams after a certain period of training. Because when you go and you don't pass the exam and you are thrown out, what do you do thereafter?
I believe the law as passed makes provision for remedials, that if you are unable to pass, you are able to, given a window to prepare and reset, I think the next year.
What we have at the moment is the same thing. You're going to the law school does not automatically qualify you.
Yeah.
You still take the exam. And he has been a director of the school. He knows that people who fail, they resit. They resit. In England, if you sit 3 times and you don't pass, that's the end. You have to find something else to do. Because it means you don't have the brain for that kind of profession. You cannot go on sitting and sitting and sitting. But I'm just saying that one has to be cautious in the sense that you don't want someone to go and waste 3 years, 5 years. Well, of course, I must also caution that the people who in England, America, and the rest who go to university and get law degree do not necessarily become lawyers. Because we are making that assumption as if it's an automatic thing. It's not. They do not necessarily become lawyers.
Even when they pass the bar?
Yeah, many of them take the law degree and then they go and do something else with it.
We have a lot of people like that in Ghana also.
Yeah.
They go to corporate practice. And
exactly. In fact,
CV.
The legal knowledge is always useful for so many other things. So a person with a law degree can become a good administrator because he would go back and do something else in administration or something else. So let's not confuse the issue. Make an assumption and say, oh, now you can just go and then you can have so many lawyers. Well, if you have so many lawyers, what do? Where do they practice? Which courts? How many cases do they have in the courts? And already we're having problems of many who are qualified lawyers and they don't have chambers even to practice. We don't have even the chambers to train them, to give them the practical experience that they needed in order to qualify them to go and work. And so you are going to have a problem of having half-baked lawyers who are unemployable, and they may go and start setting up offices and do all manner of things which will bring the profession into disrepute. And I believe that that is not the right approach.
But the criticism of that is to say, even the current system as we have it still has that problem.
Oh,
There are
yes.
a lot of people who are still coming out, passing,
Yeah,
and not fit for purpose still.
that's true.
And that those who push for this bill actually say they put in place structures in the bill that assures quality. So, for example, the council will also have a standardization. Will also ensure that the university who has applied is meeting some very clear criteria. That ensures that by the time you're given the accreditation to do, you are indeed qualified and have the lecturers who can produce the quality.
Those are beautiful words to use, but in reality, it is completely nonsensical. It doesn't work that way at all. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm saying that in America, you can find out that you can say, okay, I went to Harvard, or I went to Columbia. Those are the prestige ones. If you don't have that kind of qualification, if you are not attached to a particular judge who has a reputation, you are out. You don't have value in the market. So this is what I'm trying to emphasize, to say that let's be cautious, because those who are pushing it, it's a question of, oh, now everybody can become a lawyer. I said, no, not everybody cannot become a lawyer. It is not in the interest of the individual. It is not in the interest of the nation. Because is the law qualification the only profession that one can pursue? That's the question you should ask. Is there such a vacuum, the need for lawyers to such an extent that we must be producing thousands of them yearly? You can go to Nigeria and have that problem. At least from my colleagues in Nigeria, they are producing thousands of them in a year. And they are now in a mess because that's nothing for them to do. There's no place for them to practice. There are no courses for them to practice. The market does not require it. So that's the danger. So the law has already been gone through, but I think there must be caution in the way we apply it.
Let me bring in John. John, so first, before we go to specifics, I know you, because you debated it, you understand it better than most. Was this based on consensus when it was approved? The minority majority will agree that this is something that needs to go after you obviously had looked at it and tweaked it?
Yes.
It was consensus?
Yeah, it was.
Okay, okay.
Well, okay, so first of all, it came out as an NDC project. When we passed it, they said that they fulfilled a campaign promise. But look, when it came to the floor, and we know that they had the numbers to pass it anyway. But of course, we also felt the need to look at the legal education. So we looked at it, and I understand a lot of the issues, try to cover them. But just before maybe you ask for that question, I just wanted to just make one or two clarifications. That the General Legal Council will cease to exist.
Yep.
Because I think Prof had the impression that it will remain, but it will be replaced completely with the Council for Legal Education.
So when you say cease to exist as it relates to legal education?
Yes.
The body will still be there, but for regulation of lawyers.
No, but for
the purposes of the legal education, it will cease to have any role.
Yes.
Yes.
So there will be Council for Legal Education. And then again, Sino Kujetu mentioned, and I'm surprised he said that the GBA wasn't consulted at all. That's strange, because I think one of the principles in lawmaking these days is effective engagement. It's interesting that the whole Ghana Bar Association wasn't considered. But I'm not surprised because there's a new association called Ghana
Law Society.
And I think it's headed by the chief whip, my brother, the Fiabepo. So I'm sure the Ghana Society, Legal Society,
Ghana Law Society.
The Ghana Law Society was consulted. But
how many members are there that constitute that body? I mean, let's be careful the kind of behavior we put in this country.
yes,
Ghana Bar Association has been in existence in this country for over 100 years. Every lawyer has belonged to that.
Yeah.
Now, all of a sudden, a small group of people went and they said they were establishing Ghana Law Society. I mean, it made no sense. The basis for this, in fact, there's a matter in court right now to challenge those people and the basis for that. And so the question that arises that if Parliament and the members who were arguing in Parliament are members of the Ghana Bar Association, they will have a law passed without reference to their own mother body. To me, it is shocking.
and I am also surprised because when the bill came from the executive, the impression was that there was wide, consultation. And so if there wasn't that effective engagement...
Don't forget that there is a council
yes,
of the Ghana Bar Association.
yes,
And because I'm a past president of the Ghana Bar Association, I'm automatically a member of that council for life.
yes.
And I am there. And our president had asked for this bill, and they were dilly-dallying. Eventually, they sent something. Then she tried to make an appointment to meet with the parliament. It never came through until we heard now that the bill had been passed.
Okay.
That's an issue that I think that as a country we need to look at.
But Sammy, I think that if the Bar Council was not consulted, it might have been a slip.
Why should it be a slip?
That would be such a big slip.
And then, secondly, sometimes the attitude of the bar itself, has caused some, ripples in our circles. So the impression is that you consult the bar, they will adopt a delay attitude. They will, say keep it off and all that. I'm not saying that the lack of consultation is a good thing, but maybe let's hope that there'll be further consultations, and I don't think that it is too late.
It's been passed.
The thing has been passed already. The bill has been passed. They only want a presidential signature.
No, it is not something that because even if the president does give his assent to it, that as I keep saying, it is just a first step. As far as I'm concerned, it's the first step. There will be many more opportunities, avenues, and consultations to fine-tune it. The fact that it has been passed doesn't mean that that is the end of the road.
When we do something wrong, when we make a mistake, let's just admit that it is wrong. Let's try and correct it. You cannot brush it aside. I can tell you now that I've been practicing law in this country since 1963. On my 5th year at the bar, I was already elected to serve on the regional bar as Assistant National Secretary. Then I became Assistant National Secretary. Then I became Acting National Secretary because my boss, the Secretary, became Attorney General. So I was acting as the Secretary. I became Treasurer. I became Regional President for Greater Accra. Then I became National President. And I've since then been a member of the council. So I have the whole history behind me. I'm just saying that at that time, we used to work with the Attorney General. Indeed, from Vito Wusu and all the others who had been Attorney General. there in the Bar Council, we have regular meetings. And we work with the Law Reform Commission so that if there is any issue, it goes to the Law Reform Commission. We have representatives who are there. They will discuss the issue. Then if there is a profession involved, they will have to consult with the profession for their input. So all the various laws you see, governing the engineers, the medical society, and the rest of them, all of them emanated from that process or that kind of dialogue that we did. So something has gone wrong, and let's just admit that it is not the right approach. So that let's correct it and ensure. Because, nation building is a difficult subject. And sometimes some of the errors we make can haunt us for years to come. And so, to me, even the argument about the one party saying that we have made election promise, you understand? That is also not the right approach. Because in terms of profession, that is not the question of the party that is involved. It is Ghana. And I can tell you, if we made the error and we go and produce thousands and thousands of lawyers who are not properly trained, and we throw them onto the market, what happens?
And John, you were going to go to some of the specifics.
Yes. So if you look at the main purpose of the law, the memorandum says that the aim is to increase access to legal education. So
access is primary.
That's the main thing.
That's what
at the very outset of the memorandum. Now, what do you mean by access? What is happening is that the universities are admitting students to read law anyways. We are not going to control the admission to the universities. So through the proponents of the law, the access was access to law school. And
the professional.
And the other time I use a bottle, if I can take any bottle, what it means is that at this point, the access is small, and so it's very difficult to get in. What this law has created, if I can take any bottle, I had a bottle here. So this is it. The access, this is what it is right now. Very difficult to enter. But when you enter, you are likely to go out. Now, what they've created is to turn this around. Now, well, maybe access will be easy because once you get access to a university and you finish the LLB, it's fairly easy to, because if you are going to the same school, to get the law practice training that will lead to an award of law practice training certificate in the same university. Then when you finish, you need to come and write the national bar exam. This is where the other bottleneck is going to be. Because I want to believe that it's not just going to be a wholesale person of students. So when you say that you've created access to just the law school, but not access to become lawyers. But people don't want to just go to school for the sake of it.
Yeah.
They want to go out and become lawyers. And for me, that raises the most important question that Senior raised, whether we need as many lawyers as we are producing now. Today, the minority had a meeting with AGI, the Association of Ghana Industries. It was shocking to hear that all the good running industries in this country, the AGI president, I'm quoting him, and I'm sure he won't deny, are run by foreigners. He says that if you see any functioning manufacturing company, all the breweries we have, all the manufacturing companies we have, they are run by foreigners. They are run, you can see Ghanaians there, but the operations are done by foreigners. Why? Because we don't have people who can run these industries. And as a country, what do we really need? Do we really need lawyers, or we need people who can run these industries and companies? And so, for me, I've looked at the law. Basically, we are tweaking things around, which is okay, in a sense. But I think that the emphasis on legal education right now is getting too much. Everybody wants to become
a lawyer. Yeah, you're right.
And I'm surprised my professor actually said that we should make sure in his earlier statement that we shouldn't overproduce. Professor Nsansari is one of the proponents of mass production of lawyers.
That's true. I've been fighting with him all the time about that.
And look,
But what is wrong with mass production of law?
but now he says that we should be careful not to overproduce. I taught in his school. I was one of the people who helped set up his school. So I know him very well. So now we are coming face to face with reality. That how can a country like Ghana be producing over 1,000 lawyers?
That's right.
A year.
A year, yeah.
What are we going to do?
To do what?
When in this country, and you know, I'm sure you are well aware, tilers, carpenters,
right.
masons,
That's right.
bricklayers
Yeah.
are from Togo,
Yeah.
Burkina,
That's right.
Ivory Coast. We don't have them in Ghana.
Very true.
But what's I don't understand the correlation between
The
producing 1,000 lawyers and the other.
Yes, I'm saying that as a country, we are now fixated at producing lawyers when what we need to grow our country, the technical skills, are lacking. We are not concentrating on how to produce people with technical education and technical skills.
That's right.
But to be clear, there are thousands who graduate. Not all of them go into practice. I know many of my friends who graduate and they just have it as having graduated, having passed the bar, have been called, but they never practice, never go into.
But again,
they go into corporate, they do the other
no,
things.
but corporate is also a practice. I think maybe you are missing the point. When somebody is in corporate,
they don't even go to chambers at all. They just do something else.
So when somebody is, you are in a legal department of a company, you are in corporate practice.
Yeah.
So they are also practicing. There are so many of them. I have had situations where the General Legal Council, they call us. They want us to admit students and train them during the internship. Now we don't have space.
At all. That's not
In the chambers.
Yeah, we
chambers.
don't have space
That's
in
true.
the chambers.
That's true.
There are thousands of them around and there are no spaces. People keep calling you that we want to come just for the internship. Now imagine when they are done and they want to now work for money.
Practice.
You don't even have a law firm that is going to give you that training. So we made a lot of campaign, on this. And it's sad. As Senior said, we've politicized everything in this country to the extent that this legal education became politics.
Yeah, it
was a political campaign. All right? That we're going to make sure that everybody get access. And they brought this bill. We had to help, at least in our small way, help shape it, make it better.
So let's highlight
Yes.
the key pillars for you. I mean, in what ways did you contribute to making it better? And what are the specific things we should know about this bill as passed?
Okay, so
What has changed, apart from access? I think that is broad, but specifically, how are you going to ensure, first, the access, and also guarantee quality?
you see, so for quality, right, one of the things that this law does is the introduction of GTEC as one of the quality assurance institutions. They do that with the legal education, the Board of Legal Education. And of course, the insistence on ensuring that all the universities are going to have adequate resources before you are accredited. I think that is a good thing. What is
You
not
need to
even,
say all university, any university, not all universities.
of course, yes, those that will be accredited.
Exactly.
Those that will be accredited.
Yeah.
What is not even stated in the law is the fact that before that maybe that will come by way of regulation because you need to ensure that students get the internship training.
Yeah.
The hands-off training is not provided for in the law.
At all.
It is.
No, it is not. I've
Not
looked
really.
at it. It is
Not
not.
really.
The law has passed.
Yes.
No, not really.
You know,
Not
that
really.
Was it
insistence-
removed?
Yes, the insistence that you have to have this internship with the law firms. I'm sure that may come by way of
an ally.
But one of the things that stood up for me,
Okay.
and I tried to bring the attention of my colleagues to it, is the post-call students. Here you have a set of students, people who are lawyers. Let's say in England, somebody may have practiced for 10 years. He wants to come in. The person will now write the post-call exams, and you need to have passed the post-call exam, and then come and write the NB, that's the National Bar exams. Before then, it was just the post-call, because the person is a practicing lawyer from another jurisdiction.
In England or America.
Now the law is requiring you to now come and do the post-call and pass all the papers. And then, even if you fail one, you won't be able to, you won't be qualified to write the national bar exam. But if their colleagues in Ghana from LLB, they do the law practice training, and then they write the national bar exam. So that's something that we have to look at. Because if a person is a practicing lawyer from another jurisdiction, from what we are doing now, the person should just take classes on his own and write the NB, just like it happens in other jurisdictions. If you go and register in New York and you want to write the bar, you take your Barbary class and you go and write the exam. If you qualify, you go through. So that's something that for me, the law is passed, all right. We need to really look at
the university level.
Yes.
How is quality going to be guaranteed? What are the structures in this law?
So again,
in assessing,
that is still left the LLB level. That is still left at the university.
Okay, but there must be an institution that is ensuring that they have the structures well set up, qualified lecturers with a certain qualification to.
So that's going to be the function of the council.
Okay.
The council
the
for legal
council of
education.
GTEC, of General Legal Council.
With GTEC.
Okay.
So it's,
all three. Yeah.
Yes.
Is it mandated now that you must be a doctorate? You must have a doctorate at least to teach.
That's the academic.
Those decisions will be made by the academic board of the university.
They didn't specify in the law. They didn't specify in the law, but am I aware that Legon and some of the other universities, for example, you cannot be a teacher unless you have a PhD.
Yeah.
Although I have argued with them, because I have served on the university council before, to tell them that that also is nonsensical, because there are people who have master's degree and have been doing, specialized in such fields in such a law that their knowledge of the PhD person does not have that kind of knowledge.
Absolutely.
And so you will find out that in many other jurisdictions, they have something they call adjunct professor, which means that the person is doing something else, but he's teaching a specific subject of which he is
an expert.
An expert at. So the question would be, if this new body that we are setting up now will have people within it who are running it, who will have that kind of acumen to ensure that this is the kind of quality we are talking about now. Because the person may have, let's say, a master's degree, right?
Yes.
In law, from Cambridge, from Harvard, Columbia, and so on and so forth. And therefore, a person like that, maybe his expertise is on intellectual property. And that's something that is a hot cake on the market. You need a person like that to come and teach that subject in a practical format. And so it is not in the law, but perhaps in its application, it is very important for us to think in terms of that.
Yeah.
Because I'll give you an example. I have been a chairman of the College of Health Sciences of the University of Ghana. I'm not a doctor, but I was made chairman. Not by the university, not by government, but the school itself elected me to that position. And then we realized that we needed to train specialists and who would become PhD and become teachers. And so we set up a fund to that effect so that we can award scholarships to them, to the good doctors who are qualified to go abroad and learn and come back and be teachers. But you see that we don't get the support that we needed for that purpose. And the question, of course, is that you find out that many of the schools are all opening medical schools. And I'm always laughing, and I say, you're opening medical school. Who is going to be teaching in those your medical schools?
This is the same question that
exactly
you were just asking.
Yeah. Who is going to teach in those medical schools? Because you don't have the people with the know-how.
Yeah. And I believe this law also establishes another exam administration body.
Yeah.
Right? Separate from what currently exists.
Yes, that is what we call the National Bar Examination Committee.
Okay.
And I think the National Bar Examination Committee will be set up with members drawn from the Ghana Bar Association, from judges, and then from the law deans. Then some persons that will be appointed by the conference of the law deans, yes, and then the Chief Justice, yes, who appoints some lawyers who have academic qualifications. So that National Bar Examination Committee is what is going to conduct and assess students who, who will be who come out with the LPTC, and then they will write the National Bar exam. So that's
okay.
That's one thing that I think is good. The integrity of the exam is also very key, because one of the problems we had, and me as a law teacher, and because of what we do, I can always say that there was no way my exam will ever leak, because I set my questions, it goes for moderation, and I administer my exam. Where you're going to have a lot of people administering it is going to be a problem. But at least you can see the quality of people that will be appointed. We'll show that there is some form of integrity. Yeah. And they are going to do a lot of things listed in the law, including invigilation, ensuring maximum security, and they will handle appeals, and also, of course, they also conduct moderation of the exams and then review results, and then, of course, also formulate policies regarding reciting and all of that.
Thankfully, we can speak to a member of the General Legal Council, Dr. Francis Evans, who joins us, your colleague in Parliament. Francis, I know this is a piece of legislation that you had, campaigned for. You've been pushing for it long before you even went to Parliament. Now it's been passed. Give me quickly, because you're also a member of the General Legal Council, we now know that in this law, it completely takes away the GLC and leaves it for the Legal Education Council to handle. Give me your comment on that. What difference will that make?
Well, thank you so much, Evans. Good evening to your cherished listeners and viewers. In my view, the difference it is making is basically resetting the entire legal education, architecture. The reason being that, until now, we all understand. When I finished Legon in 2008, 2006, 2008, when I finished Legon, I just walked straight to Makola and then became a lawyer in 2010. Unfortunately, over the years, you realize the fact that people cannot do that anymore because of the lack of infrastructure at Makola. And so this law basically decentralizes basically legal education and attempt to become a lawyer. And all you need is that when you are accredited, you're able to go through the law practice courses. And when you pass, you are qualified for the National Bar exam, and that's it. Wherever you are, whether you are in Nyangpanjuri in the north, or you are in Cape Coast, or you are in Kumasi, or you are in Water, wherever you are, if only your university is certified to do the law practice test, you can go and be ready for National Bar exam. And for me, that is exceptional. And for me, that is what the difference is, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, and the removal of the General Legal Council from the legal education equation?
Well, that is equally very important, because I've advocated. I have been a victim of the work of the General Legal Council, and also now a member of the same General Legal Council. And so I know and I understand how the General Legal Council works. I didn't believe that the GLC, as it was composed. I didn't believe that its work and its function, bordering on discipline of lawyers and regulating legal education, was the way it should go. So I'm glad that now we have a council that is completely decoupled from, the regulation of the legal practice itself and the regulation of legal education. These are two separate things, and I feel that this law really clearly demarcates that, and I am really excited that the law is taking that course.
And how does this law address the quality concerns? It's been raised on the show tonight and keeps coming back.
That's correct. I mean, Evans, I have argued that, see, I've been a lawyer of minimum 15 years at the bar, perhaps qualified to go to the Supreme Court, and having a PhD in law. I've been to court several times and seen the quality of lawyers that we have currently under this regime. Evans, there are some who are really, really, really bad, extremely bad lawyers. And so I've argued that it is not necessarily the kind of system you run that determines the quality of lawyers. Because what we even have now, irrespective of the fact that we are regulating access, we still have really, really bad lawyers. So what guarantees good lawyers is not about restricting access. Good lawyers are guaranteed by the kind of faculty you have that trains those lawyers. What kind of experiential training we give them? What kind of mentorship we give them? Who do they look up to? How do they practice the law? What kind of ethics do they practice?
And how does this law guarantee that?
Well, you see, so that's it. So this law may not necessarily guarantee that. So my point is that under this regime or under the new regime, what guarantees like quality is not about whether you are restricting access or opening access. What guarantees, quality goes beyond restriction or access. In that way, what this law may do would have to do with what the new council established under this law will be doing. For example, how do you, accredit new accredit new faculties? The process of accreditation, the faculty members, the courses that are being run, the facilities that they have, and how are they able to ensure that students that come out of the process are quality. And guess what, Evans? Because of competition, assuming you grant access or you grant accreditation to University of Ghana, UCC, KNUST, and then you grant access to, let's say, UTS and all that. In no time or in the next 4 years, you'll get to know that which university has the highest number of students who are doing well and who are being called to the national bar every time when they write the exam. They can easily tell. And everybody can tell that, you know what, UDS is not doing well, or KNUS is not doing well, or even the University of Ghana is not doing well. And so it will be self-regulated. Everybody will get to know. You see, so opening the access will grant what we call competition that will self-regulate. If you're not doing well, everybody will know, oh, this university is not doing well. Because most of their students are not getting called to the national bar. When they write it, they fail. And so for me, the opening access rather increases competition that will self-regulate and equality.
That's an interesting point of view. Mr. Sari, what do you make of that? Because you run a school, the competition that this will create, assuming you get accredited and your other private training universities gets accredited, now you are competing. And we are going to be marking you at the end, how many of your trained students passed the bar?
Evans, I'm not worried about how many students will pass the exam, how many students will fail the exam. My worry is the caliber of students we have today. To be honest, our students are not learning. They are not studying. Or they are most of them, about 70% of our students these days are interested and quite keen on getting first class and upper without working assiduously for that.
But how are they able to get that if you're not?
Yes, and we have teachers who are willing to award A grades and B grades, and that is the problem.
That's right.
It is not that most of the students don't have the time, to study, but they want a degree.
That's right.
And they want A or B. Yeah. So if you assess objectively, and a student, is graded C or D, they think that, Samuel Kujetu is callous, insensitive, is wicked, they will call Sami names. So the real problem, the real challenge is the type of students we are, enrolling in our institutions. Then the second one is the proliferation of law faculties in the country at the moment, and I may, be interested in maintaining standards. I can't say the same thing, for a competitor.
And to that extent, this law is good because this law then regulates that.
It cannot.
So it cannot. Now you cannot just set it up.
You cannot use the law, to do what cannot be done. Yeah. It's not just possible. Yeah. It's impossible. If a private businessman establishes a law faculty and is interested, in making money, how are you going to?
But this law doesn't allow that. From what I read, the council would have to accredit you before you can run a faculty.
Yeah, I know of a contractor, very little education, who has set up a university and he's chancellor.
But that's a failure of the system, the current system.
Yeah.
The system is. But somebody must accredit.
Well, it just shows you the danger that I believe that all of us are trying to put across.
That's the real danger.
But John, I'm curious if you can respond to that. In Parliament, this obviously came up.
Yes.
There's something in that piece of legislation that should fix that, is it not?
No. So, in fact, when you set up the law school, there are a lot of requirements that you need to fulfill in order to get accredited. Yeah. And you have to have the infrastructure, the library, the teachers, all of that.
And the council will make sure before they accredit you.
But you see, the problem, and Mr. Mensah is just being real.
Okay.
And I think I have an idea what
Uncle Sam is
also talking about. This is a country where people with political affiliation will set up university and may not have all of this, but will get accreditation.
That's right.
And so that is the reality. I mean, we cannot run away from it. The law is there. These are the requirements. The person can set up a university and buy the books, get the library, get the lecturers, get everything. But in the end, and the problem is that they will set up and get this for the accreditation. But the lecturers, and in some cases, they will go and borrow the lecturers for the accreditation.
That's right.
Post the accreditation. Okay.
And so you see that a year after the school is accredited, we have people who have just come out of the law school teaching the students. People with no experience, with little to or no qualification, in terms of the doctorate requirements. And they have no experience also. And these are the people who teach.
I mean, but I'm sorry, that is not a problem with this law, is it not? I mean, this is just a problem with the Ghanaian society. Yeah, I mean, the quality of the students and what we're just talking about, this has nothing to do with this piece of legislation.
But you see, this is the danger we are trying to expose, is to say that we can't just leave it like that and think that because a law has been made like this, therefore everything is going to work out well. Because we have to take society the way it is meant to be. Now there's a lot of people in this country who have so much wealth, very little education, they have the connections where they can pull strings and they get contracts so they make money. So what do? Now law faculty is a beautiful thing. They can make money. And so they get a lot of students who will come, they pay a lot of money to be students. And then the question, of course, is that they come out with LLB, right? But they didn't actually pass an exam, but they've been passed. I hope you're getting the picture of what I'm driving here.
I know what you mean.
Exactly. They've been passed. I have taught for 20 years at the law school, and I can tell you, I have seen some people who came from some of these schools, some basic knowledge of law they don't have it. And I was wondering as to how they came to be admitted to the law school. And then you begin to wonder, but it is the danger that all of us are concerned about. And of course, they go and they don't pass the exam. And then they petition for remark. Is that not what you people do?
Yeah.
I was laughing. I said, I've never heard that before. From the school that I went to, there was no such a remark. You either pass or you fail. That's what there is to hear.
Widening access to legal education is a good thing. Mm-hmm. It's good for the country. It's good for the individual. It's good for everybody. So when he said, I have always advocated that we should open our doors to everyone. I established the KNUST law faculty. Mm. And I remember what Honorable Sam said, oh, Kwaku, you are good. But today, Kumasi is one of the finest law faculties, it depends on who is at the helm of affairs. If you ask Honorable Okujetu, he will bear testimony. Under my directorship, you had to do the right thing. Uncle Sam, far, my senior at the bar. But when we had, to enact courses, I'll defer to his wisdom, but I will insist that the right thing should be done. Mm. Can we say the same thing of every administrator? So corruption is so rife and embedded, in every kind of this society, that what Honorable Dakwe is saying is real, all too predictable. Accreditation, you can do. I'm in it, so I know what I'm saying. We need honest people, to establish law clinics, law faculties, law schools. If you are dishonest and you get involved, your products are going to be dishonest. Not just half-baked lawyers, but dishonest. And then, we throw them onto the unsuspecting litigating public. And as Honorable Okuyetu, pointed out, the fact that you go to a law school will not guarantee your success as a practitioner. Yeah. There are two different things. But then let us open, the door to them. Let us widen access. We need more lawyers. I will never agree with Uncle Sami that, there are too many lawyers. We still need many more. You go to central government, they are not there. Local government, they are not there. Go to commerce, they are not there. Industry, they are not. What do? We need to, start. And this is a very, very gigantic step that has been taken. Forget about politics. Let the politicians do what they want. But we, the consumers, we, the producers, must, harness, our ideas and thoughts and say that if this is what we need for Mother Ghana, let us all, get up our loins.
And thankfully, we can get the perspective of a student. Hassan Asari is the president of the National Association of Law Students. Hassan, you've heard the thoughts in the studio. Where do you stand on this particular piece of legislation?
Thank you and good evening to the panel. I believe it is something we've been advocating for, fighting for over the years. I think I joined the fight somewhere in 2019, but if you allow students or give access to students, I don't think it's a wrong thing, because we had a whole backlog of people who were waiting to just have access to the professional course. So in my opinion, it is a good thing. You asked some of the good things that are in the reforms. One of the things I was pushing for was to get the judges of the council. I don't see them there, because for me, a person cannot be a judge in his own case. So that provision alone satisfies
really
the bit about getting the judges out. Talking about the issue of quality and quantity, I have always advocated that I don't see much of a problem there. Now, I understand when it comes to human resource, but this is one of the problems. We are saying that we don't have enough lawyers. Others are saying there is enough in the system, and yet we don't have the human resource. So that by itself means there's one issue we need to solve there. Now, going forward, if you look at the reforms the bill that has been passed, I've seen a couple of things there. You have a board who's supposed to have some supervisory position or do some kind of supervision. The council sets standards and ensures that people are aligned with it. You talk about the accreditation board. They also must accredit these institutions to run the professional course. Before we even talk about the last group, which is the National Bar Exam Committee. Now, if we are saying we don't trust these four institutions or people I have described or called, then I understand that there will be a problem with quality. Because if those people do their work well, because if accreditation is to ensure that a faculty must have 20 lecturers, and they have 10, and you ensure that you don't accredit them, but you wait until they meet the requirements, I don't think there will be a problem. Number two, when I read it, I realized there's a provision where when you accredit an institution and they lower their standard, you can actually revoke or take away the accreditation. So there is that power there to ensure that that accreditation bit is met. Now, when it comes to examination, if I go through the LLB and let's say I am half-baked, I believe the exam should be able to seek me out at the point where I am going to become a lawyer. If the exam is such that it processes me to ensure that I am of the quality that the country expects, I don't think that is equally a problem. But I understand those who have some fears, because about 5 years ago, I remember I read a document where about 10 people were given some kind of concessionary, and they went into the law school without writing exams, and they are lawyers now. Even during that time, these things did happen. So for me, if we can tighten the system around accreditation, national bar exam, the board and the council, this problem should be a thing of the past. Now, talking about even the faculty level, I am sure we can look at accreditation and set up some standards in enrolling students into the LLB itself. You cannot accept, let's say, aggregate 20. You can cut it off at, let's say, 8, 10, whatever you want, so that you can sift the brilliant ones from the non-brilliant ones. So I believe that this is something that we can do to take away the issue of quality and quantity. Now, in 2019, when 128 students passed out of 1820, there was no problem. But if 1,800 is going to pass, are we saying there's a problem? We need the lawyers, and I don't see any problem with allowing students to get access to read law at all.
I mean, and the debate will continue. Do you also have Dr. Francis Xavier Susu with me? Because I need to clarify if the president has assented to this already. Francis, do you know?
Well, I mean, it's one of the bills that the president will be assenting to, I'm sure, this week. I mean, I know Parliament is processing that for the president to assent to.
Okay.
And so hopefully the president should assent to it, I mean, before the week ends.
Okay. Okay, before the weekend. Okay, so we expect that shortly, at least in April, this should be. Is there a transitional provision in there? I mean, so that for me is important. For those who are listening to us who are planning to write the entrance exam, this year, what happens to them? What is the transitional arrangement in this?
Well, the transitional arrangement is that those who are already under the existing regime would continue to be under the existing regime, except if they opt to be under the new regime. I.e., if you have an LLB and you are now going to say Makola, if you decide that you want to wait and write the national law practice certificate examination, then that is an option that you would have. Otherwise, you can go through Makola and still qualify under Makola. So, and so what it means is that when other faculties are accredited, Makola may run a hybrid program the law practice certificate examination and what it currently is doing. And so that's the kind of transitional element that exists under the provision.
Okay, but what will this year, are we still going to have entrance exams into Makola, or this effectively?
No, but you see, the AG has signaled that we are most likely to implement the law from September this year.
Okay.
If that works out, what it means is that the faculties that are accredited are also going to run fully a law and practice certificate examination. What that means is that every student, wherever you are, may choose any faculty or any law school that are accredited to run the law practice examination certificate. And so I don't know whether, with that in mind, Makola will still be willing to run an entrance exam, because then they may not have all the students that they always want for the purpose of entrance examination. Because the entrance exam at Makola is because they don't have enough space available. So when you finish, you have to do that entrance exam so that they can limit the number of students that are coming. But if the students are now going to all other faculties across the country, then I doubt that Makola will still will still do their entrance examination.
Yeah. Okay, that's an interesting one. And sorry, are you ready? As the head of, are you ready?
The public universities.
Because if it takes off in September,
on paper, you mean the whole nation, or all faculties?
Yeah.
Let's say Mancres for.
Because exactly.
Yeah.
If you look at yourself as an example.
I would say that Mancres is we are ready, but we should be cautious. Indeed, if I had my way, we should have a transitional period. Let's say 2 years.
Okay.
To mop up the system. Let's see where we went wrong, correct, the errors, and then, begin this new, phase of training intending lawyers in 2 years' time. Let the public universities, the 5 public, universities begin it on a pilot scheme. Then the private universities should be given some chance, because all of us don't have, the
facilities,
the teachers and other resources, to do it. If we rush, we may realize that 3, 4, 5 years and we'll regret. And we shouldn't. This is a good reform.
But I presume
the implementation.
You'll be submitting an application to be accredited.
We'll be accredited. We'll go through accreditation.
Yeah.
But I'm suggesting caution.
Okay. John, what is the transitional period? Is there one specified? I think he says that the AG says by September.
There's nothing there.
So is this discretionary?
There's nothing in
That's
the law.
not in the law.
Okay.
In fact, it's taking effect
From
immediately.
September.
I see.
Once the president signs.
Yeah. He's mentioned that the AG says from September. So the new academic year.
1st September.
1st September.
The new academic year. And the point is that those who are in final year right now at the faculties will have to now. But it means that by September, their universities or the accredited universities will be available to receive the application.
That is, if those universities have been accredited.
That's the accredited universities.
Okay.
So if you have 10 accredited universities, those accredited universities will now receive the application and then enroll them to read the law practice training course.
So in other words, they don't have to go and write Makola entrance exam.
No.
This year?
This year, no.
Okay.
In fact, the law is going to take effect
immediately. The president assents to it.
To write the Makola exam. In fact, I believe there's more reason why we had to do this before we rose last.
Okay.
So that it gives the president time for them to clean the bill. The president signs it. At least you have April to prepare. Otherwise, we would have waited till sometime in June or July. So
that's interesting.
It's going to take effect.
I have 30 seconds, but what about his point that it would have been ideal to have a longer transition period, 2 years? Even I have some.
Well, for me, I think now that we want to do this, let's go at it.
Okay.
And then
make the mistakes and learn and fix it.
Learn.
I guess you disagree with that approach.
Well, you can't You can't see a danger and tell me that you are going to make a mistake and then you correct it. So what I'm concerned is that let's sit down and do it properly. There are institutions that are meant to be set up under that needs new law.
That needs to be.
So let's ensure that those institutions are set up. Because even if you talk about accreditation, it means that you have the institution that has to accredit the universities.
Yeah.
And so when you don't have all that, then what are you rushing to do? It makes no sense.
Okay, very interesting indeed. And so that road will have to travel. But this is taking immediate effect from what John Darko had just said. We'll see. We'll keep monitoring and we'll report after the president has assented and see how this plays out. Enjoy the rest of your evening.